Hey, bosses and Ganguza. You know, your journey in voiceover is not just about landing gigs. It's about growing, both personally and professionally. At Ganguza Voice Productions, I focus on coaching and demo production that nurtures your voice and your confidence. Let's grow together. Visit anganguza.com to find out more.
It's time to take your business to the next level, the boss level. These are the premier business owner strategies and successes being utilized by the industry's top talent today. Rock your business like a boss, a VO boss. Now let's welcome your host, Ann Ganguza.
Hey bosses, welcome to the VO Boss Podcast and the Boss Superpower Series. I'm your host, Ann Ganguza, along with my special guest co-host, Law Lapidus. Hey, Law.
Hey, Annie. It's great to see you, as always.
How are you?
Wonderful. Ready to talk and chat it up?
Awesome. So, Law, as you know, I am a coach and as well as you. And it seems like every week I have a few students that they always want to do live reads with me during our sessions, which I think is wonderful. But as a coach and a former educator, I always assign homework. Because I want people to get the most out of their sessions. So I feel like it's very important that they have different scripts that they can read, they can record, they can practice getting used to different styles. And I want to make sure that in between sessions, they are doing that on some sort of a daily basis. I think that's super important for their growth and development. It amazes me, Law, how many times I will have students say, well, I got really busy. And I get it. Like, life happens. There's families, there's things that happen. And you can't always practice. But sometimes there are students who just never seem to take the time to really work in between sessions. I thought we should have a discussion about that.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point. I used to think, and my team used to think, and oftentimes mistake, when that happened, and it happened quite frequently with us as well, that they didn't care. They weren't engaged. They weren't serious. They were lazy, all of those things. Sometimes it is true.
I don't know if that's
Or they
it.
procrastinate. Procrastination was very, very
big.
But
that's a whole nother episode.
It's a whole other episode. But I mean, I have found that the learning process of how you cement technique and how you utilize your tools and how you really discover organically who you are as a performer is through the practice session. And there's different methodologies that you got to look at to make it successful for yourself. And of course, one, which is very hot today, the accountability of having at least one other person, one partner out there that's going to meet you, that's going to be with you live, real time, and work you through it, has typically been very successful for people that their schedules match.
Sure.
They're well matched together. They enjoy being together. It becomes a professional friendship for them.
Sure.
And it can work.
Well, now you're talking about accountability, like an accountability group, right? That can just say, all right, so what did you do this week to further your business? So I want to make sure that we're talking not just accountability in terms of, hey, what did you do this week to secure more leads, to get more work?
No.
We're talking accountability for, let's say, if you want to get better at the craft. And I think there's lots of things that you can do to help yourself get better at the craft. And now it's hard to have an ear when you haven't developed an ear yet. And so sometimes I'll give homework and people will get very upset if they're like, yeah, but I did the homework, but now that you've told me these things, you shouldn't listen to that homework anymore. But honestly, the homework that I give or the scripts that I give, no matter what performance level you're at, right? There's so many good reasons to do the homework.
Oh, no question
Just
about
being a
it.
teacher, because even if you don't have an ear yet, there's many advantages of you experiencing and attempting to record by yourself and get things submitted on time. Gosh, there's just so many things, right? It's like auditioning techniques. There's editing techniques you're getting better at. Yeah. You're experiencing different styles. I mean, you could be within a genre and have multiple different styles, scripts come your way that you have to analyze and figure out. And so for me, if you don't have a discipline of doing something voiceover every single day, performance-wise, right? I think you're kind of missing the boat. And I'm not going to say that you're lazy if you don't do it, but I am going to say that having something that you do every single day is important because it helps you learn, as you said, who you are. It helps you learn, like, oh, if I record a script in the morning, I realize, oh, I have a lower voice in the morning, or I have more energy in the morning, or versus recording after a long day at work, right? Oh, I sounded a little bit strained in that performance. So it helps to know who you are as a performer by having those practice, having the exercises, having the homework, whatever you want to call it. And also, I think having an accountability buddy is very helpful. And also, let's talk about workout groups.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll tell you, before this idea of accountability buddies came in, which really came from other industries completely, like the gym, working out at a gym. You'd have an accountability partner at a gym, way before I knew about it for voiceover. I always learned it as an actor. In conservatory level, you would always be in rehearsal. We didn't call it practice sessions. We called it rehearsal. You were always rehearsing your roles, always. And could you rehearse alone? Of course. And you have to rehearse alone at times. But when you can be with another person, that level of energy and stimulation and fun factor, I think helps to cement a discipline of saying, I got to come to it every day.
It's like, I have a class that I'm going to.
Yes, I have to get to that. I have to do that. I'm being held to that. So then when you go to your workout classes, you have a lot to bring to the table because guess what? You're not just relying on the workout class to give you everything. You've already been working out on your own. Right? And then you're bringing that in for your director or your coach or your facilitator and saying, here are things I've been working on. Here are things I've been coaching and practicing and rehearsing every day. Now let me work through it with a live group in the room.
Absolutely. And I think that gives you yet another level of practice that can really help you develop auditioning skills. And it makes you accountable. You're like, well, I don't want to be a complete fool. I should probably work on my technique or my performance so that when I get in front of the group, I'm not going to necessarily seem like I don't know what I'm doing. And so I do want to say one word of caution when working out with peer groups, right? Peer groups without necessarily someone that can really guide along the peer group that maybe have more experience might be just floundering, shall I say, or misguiding if that's the case. If you have a bunch of new people in a workout group and you're all directing one another, sometimes you can get direction that may not be helpful because everybody is new. So at least if you're working out with a group of people, if you can try to have a leader of that group that can oversee or that has some experience, some casting experience, some coaching experience, that can help guide if there is feedback that may or may not be helpful to you for your performance.
I couldn't say that any better, Annie. I'm not a fan of pair workout groups. And the reason is because it's not that you can't have professional friends and you can't help one another. You can, but I get concerned about, and I'll bring it back to the gym again because it's an easy analogy, that if I meet up with 2 or 3 or 4 people and we're all lifting the 50-pound weight and whatever, and I'm just not doing it properly, and they're not aware of that. They're not catching that. They might even be saying, great job, Law. Oh, my God, look at your biceps. And meanwhile, I'm straining my back. I'm hurting my lower back. I'm hoping that the facilitator or the coach or the trainer has that knowledge base to say, hey, no, we don't do it that way. Right?
Here's your proper technique. Here's your proper
That's
form.
my biggest concern. And the other concern I have about a peer workout group as well is be careful, like have your gossip antennas up. We shouldn't be going into a practice, rehearsal, performance group to talk about the business or gossip about other people or whatever. And oftentimes it can go down that road of like, oh, who did you audition for today? Oh, I got that script. Oh, what do you think of her? How come she sent that out? And then all of a sudden, all sorts of things are said in that room, which are not appropriate, makes people feel really uncomfortable, and is completely off topic from what you came in to do in the first place, which was practice.
Yeah. And we're talking, again, bosses, we're talking performance and techniques, not necessarily business meetings, right? Where business accountability accountability. And in that place, I think you can talk about the business, the industry as it exists. And I agree with you, Law. I think gossip, we have to be very careful about gossip, just because I don't think gossip serves any useful purpose, really. And it is one of those things that gets, let's gossip around the water cooler. It happens. I mean, we do it. But I think that business accountability groups or performance groups should probably steer clear of that if it's possible. I don't think it's really constructive in a lot of ways. And in regards to workout groups, I mean, I can't sit here on the voboss podcast and not say we have an Audition Demolition, which is a really wonderful group where you can work out, and we have a simulated audition. And you can get feedback from coaches, Law and myself, and also work up your live performance skills, as well as I have the VO Peeps, which has a workout group that happens once a month that is part of the group. And you've got TIC, right? Then you have workouts that happen for your group, Law.
Yeah, we got weekly workouts happening. And I wanted to say about Audition Demolition, when we came up with that, Annie, I don't even think we realized really the impact that kind of a live directed session has. And I'll be honest, I mean, you can edit this out later. It's educational, it's developmental, it's social. But let me be honest, I have pulled a few of those people for my roster that were amazing people that came in that I said, oh my goodness, they need an agent or they need representation like ASAP. So whenever you go into a professional work experience like this, you're in a room, you're auditioning. You're actually auditioning. It's the real deal. It's not a mock audition. It's not a mimic audition. It's a real.
Well, even though we say it is, but it is real.
It's real. Annie could be casting something or have a friend that's producing something, and she may be thinking about you because she just saw you in the room. So I'm just saying, come in and really experience the live directed session and observe. Also observe what's happening with others, with your colleagues. It's fabulous.
And with your weekly workouts, as well as mine, I have guest directors that come in on a regular basis. And I cannot tell you the amount of times where I've had a casting director come in or a talent agent. And I can never promise, right? As a matter of fact, I even have to have a disclaimer saying that this does not guarantee you representation at all. However, there have been a number of peeps that have come into my workout groups and performed well, and they have been signed with an agent, or they have struck up a relationship with a casting director and then gotten hired. So I think that these are the things that I think are very beneficial for bosses out there in really growing in the performance aspect of your career. And it's so, so important because I am a business owner. I am a coach. If you say to me, I want to do live reads every time we meet, of course I can do live reads, but I also want you to be working on them in between sessions, because otherwise it's going to take you a really long time to get to the point where you're going to be ready to, let's say, record a demo or ready to really get out there and do work. It's kind of like I used to take piano lessons back in the day. And if I didn't practice in between my lessons, boy, did my teacher know it, because she would give me music to practice during the week. And so when I would meet with her the following week, if I didn't practice it, guess what? It was very painfully obvious. And she could take my money week after week. And if I didn't practice, well, my mom would be angry because, she's like, why am I spending all that money on these sessions? And if you think about it, really, bosses, you're spending money and you should be getting the most out of your sessions that you can. So in addition to the, I would say, workout groups that are led with coaches or people that are experienced that can really help move you forward, also yourself in the studio, working on these scripts and even fumbling, which is fine. That's what they're there for. I mean, that's why I give homework. And then struggling through the editing. And people always say, well, do you really need me to edit it? And I said, I want you to edit it like it's an audition for me, right? So then I'm going to play it back for you, and then we're going to talk about it, and I'm going to redirect you. And the reason I do that is not because I want to just give you busy work. It's not busy work. It is giving you so much more. Like, this is what's going to happen when you get a job, right? You're going to have to record in your studio. You're going to have to self-direct. You're going to have to edit that audio, and you're going to have to present it. Or if you're doing an audition, right? And you're going to have to put it in a form that someone can actually listen to. You're going to have to understand understand your editing skills. You're going to have to, in certain cases, in e-learning and corporate, you have to remove breaths, or you have to really de-amplify your breaths, and you have to do all those things. And I'm like, look, the point of me giving you something on a day-to-day basis to do is not to stress you out. It is to help you get the most out of our sessions together. And I think that it's important that you have a discipline. If you can spend 20 minutes a day, if you can spend an hour a day, if you can spend more than that, that's wonderful. But take time, set aside, and make a discipline. And sometimes I say mix up the times. Like if you can do it in the morning if you have another job that you go to, do it in the morning before you go to the job. And then maybe if you can do it during the lunch hour, maybe try it when you come home. And then you get to know yourself, know your performance level, know, oh, I sound good in the morning. I have a lot of energy. Or I sound horrible after a day's work when it's been horrible.
Well said. Couldn't have said it any better. I mean, that's really what it is. And when you show up to whatever you show up to, don't underestimate it. What I mean by that is whether it's a partner of yours, whether it's a workout group, whether it's in front of a casting director, whether it's Audition Demolition, put yourself together as if you are a professional in a professional environment. And I don't care if people are showing up in pajamas and they're coming from bed. Don't do it. Don't make the mistake to do that, because not only will your psychology not be up to par with the level at which you need to be sustaining and working at, but you could literally lose connections. You could lose jobs. You could lose potential opportunities, because I don't know about you, Henny, but I see the weirdest things in TIC. Like all of a sudden I see a bed and I'm like, what? Why am I looking at an unmade bed? And I have to take out the video. Like I have to literally watch out and take out the video. I see the weirdest things and I'm like, why would you show up in bed? Why would you show up just coming out of the shower? Why would you show up in these ways? These are meetings, professional meetings. And I think that the casualness of being at home has trained people into thinking, well, I'm on Zoom. It's just I'm here. It's okay. No, you're still in a professional meeting environment where people are thinking about the work you're doing. They're observing you.
Well, it is about more than just your voice. I mean, it is about the professionalism and professional demeanor and how you act, what you look like. It's all part of the package. And that's that whole discussion, like, do we even need demos anymore? Of course we do. Do we need performance coaching? Of course we do. I mean, in reality, this is what makes us who we are. It helps us develop and move forward in our businesses. And again, I cannot stress enough that if you're not dedicating a certain amount of time on a day-to-day basis to get better at this craft, then I'm not quite sure what you're doing. And that's fine if maybe it's just a hobby for you. Maybe it's just something you're trying out to see if you enjoy it. And a lot of times there are people who are like, oh gosh, I didn't realize it was going to be work. I thought I was just talking behind the mic. And a lot of times, right, again, you don't know what you don't know. And so if you think it's easier than it is, that's another reason why I give the homework that I give, so that people can see that it really isn't. And so that you can get the feedback, you can get the evaluation. And I can say, you know what, it sounds like you need to improve on your studio a little bit. I'm hearing a little bit of noise. Or, hey, I'm hearing some mouth clicks. Or I'm hearing whatever that is. Or your performance sounds like it's not, I don't believe it. It's not authentic. And so those are the things that you're practicing is going to help you. And again, at some point, it's like you practice and you don't hear yourself. You don't hear yourself, and then you get feedback, and then you come back. You practice some more, and then you get some more feedback, which is why I think having that coaching or having that professional that can give you feedback is so incredibly critical to improve in your career. I mean, can you do it all on your own by watching videos? I think that can be a supplement if you have a good group. The VO Peeps, we have videos that you can watch that were people that have worked out before with guest directors who are amazing in their field. I mean, Law, you've been on it a couple of times. And Audition Demolition, gosh, guys, we have the Audition Demolitions on the voboss YouTube channel. You can go and watch them now and learn from those. So yeah, I think that those types of workouts, those types of group practices are something that can be very beneficial for you.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it any better. You're taking the words out of my head. I would say this, though, too. I think you and I take for granted how much energy and stamina and willfulness we have in going from session to session, hour to hour, moment to moment through a very, very long day because we've been trained that way. We're used to that. We expect that to some degree. We enjoy that. We love that. Well, I have found, like when I run classes, and as it goes after the first hour into 90 minutes, I start watching the group to see, is there energy going? Is there stamina going? By 2 hours, people are starting to pop off.
Yes, I am so
And I
shocked
know,
at that because
listen, Mama-Law knows.
Mama-Law
knows that they're lying when they say, "Oh, I got an appointment, I have to go," or no,
I get
they're
people who
getting
leave.
tired.
Yeah, they leave after 2 hours. And that's so interesting that you say that because it used to be years ago, I would have 3-hour workouts. And if it were like a guest director that was like top in their field, people would stay until they left. I mean, it was just like they couldn't get enough of it. And lately, Law, I have had sessions where my guest director goes a little bit past 2 hours and people are like, I got to go. I'm off.
Right.
And I find that a little bit disturbing.
Well, therein lies the background and the history of that talent and where has their training come from? Where has their experience come from? I'll use an example because a lot of voiceover talent are also on-camera actors as well. Many, many, many. If they're on a film set, they know they have to have patience for 7, 8, 11, 14 hours. They're not just going to be released because they get tired. They're going to have to stick that through and figure out what makes them stay with it throughout that time frame. I mean, same with like if you do theater. Many voiceover talent come from a theater background. Well, that's a big rehearsal process. You could go in for 3, 4, 5 hours at a time to rehearse a show. So those folks that come in, I find, those folks that come in already have a built-in understanding of time and energy and stamina.
Yeah. I mean, stamina. I'm just going to say there is something to be said for stamina. And especially because, let's say, I mean, I work a lot in long format narration, right? You need stamina to be able to be present in that script, to execute that 45 module e-learning, right? And audiobook narrators, I find, have good stamina, but there's also material that may be completely interesting to them, right? Whenever it's story driven, right? I feel like, well, at least there's some story in there, and sometimes there may not be stories within the stories, but you have to develop a vocal muscle. You really do. And it's kind of like me when back in the day when I was teaching, and I would be teaching class after class after class after class, your voice had to get used to talking that much. I mean, I had to build up stamina. You go to the gym, right? I got to build muscle. You have to build vocal muscle, and you have to build not only vocal muscle, but mental muscle that really helps you to stick it out, to be present, to be that actor for the amount of time that you need. I mean, if there's breaks in between, right, and you're watching somebody else go in a group session, right, and all of a sudden it's like, but I'm on the East Coast, right? I get people that say that. I'm on the East Coast and I got to go to bed. Okay, I get that, but still there's stamina, right? There is a muscle that you need to build up if you really want to see yourself succeed. And we might have people that argue with us that say, is it that hard? Yeah. I mean, I feel like it can be if you want to be good at this.
Right. But wouldn't you say also, though, Annie, that there's this, whether it's an addiction factor or a dopamine kick or whatever it is, I find so many of us that come from these backgrounds and work through a long day, work through a long shift, love it. We just can't get enough of it. There's an insatiable need to keep doing it. So if you're practicing, for instance, you shouldn't keep practicing at 5 minutes or 10 minutes for a year, 2 years, 3 years. You should be building that time frame and that stamina and the passion for why you're staying longer with it. I just love what we do. I love what I do. I enjoy what I do. I want more of it. I want to do more of it. You know what I mean? If I teach a live class, and I teach a live class in a studio, which is more rare nowadays, they're typically 6 to 8 hours in length. And the kids that sit in the class that are like in the 20s or in the 30s, they will start to fade about halfway through. I'll see them kind of like fade, and I'll be like, you know what, you guys, I'm not used to taking as many breaks, but you tell me when you need a break. I don't want to lose you. Just tell me when you need a break.
Exactly.
But those kinds of things in your training is so important, because then when you go practice on your own, if you've done 6 hours of training or 8 hours of training in a row, to do 15 minutes or 30 minutes is no longer a big deal for you. It's all relative, right? In a lot of ways.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Law, what are your best tips for developing that stamina muscle that you would say voice actors can do to help their performance?
Well, perhaps this is redundant. You need to do it, and you need to do it a
Mm.
lot. And
Mhm,
so,
mhm.
like, let's say you're joining a class or a group or a workout or whatever it is, you need to like top yourself, keep challenging yourself, keep topping
Mhm.
yourself. One group may be 1 hour. That's going to help me practice. That's all I need for now. 1 hour is perfect. But then I want to also join a group that may go 2 hours in length because I want
Mhm,
to be able
mhm.
to see. This is one of the things, Annie, that graduate school taught me. I didn't realize at the time, but later I realized they taught you how to teach your craft, direct your craft, produce your craft. Why? Because you weren't always performing. You were observing all the
Mhm,
people in
mhm.
the room.
Yeah.
You were made to give feedback to every single person in the room until you were blue in the face and said, I don't know what to say anymore. They
Yeah.
said, you better figure out what to say. Because if you're teaching in a program, if you're producing a project or you're doing whatever, and you have to give feedback, you have to give feedback. So that's a muscle. That's a
Yeah.
muscle where you have to just keep exposing yourself to more and more people simultaneously and
Mhm,
more
mhm.
time. I just want to say one more thing about actors. Actors oftentimes, beginning level actors, would get very annoyed if they're in a room where they only get to work for a very small part of the
Yes.
time, and then they
Yes,
have
they
to
only get
watch 15 people, right? And I said, you
Yes.
better thank your lucky stars because that's going to be one day your company, your team, your classroom,
Mhm,
your whatever.
mhm,
And
mhm.
you're going to have the stamina and discipline to go through every single one of those auditions, every single one
Yeah.
of those performances.
I think a good student or someone that really wants to learn as much as they possibly can will understand the value of sitting there and listening and
Yes.
watching other
Yes.
people. And you're right. There's a lot of people who will be quick to complain that, well, they might do a group workout, but they only get 10 minutes on mic. And so I believe that you should have individual attention, which is great for
Mhm.
one-on-one coaching, as well as the group
Yes,
workouts.
I do
That
too.
together
Yeah.
builds your
Yeah.
muscle and
Yes.
really is something I advise everyone. And to get experience and exposure with different directors, and which is why one of the reasons why I have the VO Peeps group, and
Mhm.
it's one of the reasons why you have TIC, right? And
Mhm.
you bring in guest directors
Yes.
because it's very important for you to get exposure from different teachers,
Mhm.
from different feedback from different people, because it just helps you become a more well-rounded actor.
Mhm.
And of course, if you can make that discipline, I mean, you don't want to be investing all your money into sessions and not be getting the most out of your sessions.
Right.
And so,
Right.
with that, if you are making the investment to get that coaching, then make sure that you start to exercise that muscle on a daily basis or every other day, whatever you can work in on a consistent basis. I think consistency is key.
Right. It doesn't always have to be constant, but it should be consistent. That's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
important. And I would build in every time you work a new tool, something that you have observed, picked up, been
Hmm.
coached or directed to do. Write it down. Don't
Yeah.
just keep it in your head and forget about it because there's a million things that
Yeah.
coaches and directors are going to be offering to you throughout your career that you're just not going to be able to conjure up and remember. So you have to document, however you
Yeah.
document,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
pull one thing out. Say, oh, okay, Annie coached me. Okay, she gave me builds this week. I got to work on my build. Let me look at the script. Let me work
Yeah.
on my build. That's going to take my focus into a very specific zone rather than me standing in the booth going, has 15 minutes gone by yet? Have I
Yeah.
practiced enough? Right?
Exactly. Exactly. And I'm going to say when you practice, it requires your focus. So for me, to be the best actor that you can be, it requires 100+% focus into your scene, who you are, who you're talking to, because it's so easy to just read. So easy to just read. So don't just get in there and read. Get in there and create those scenes. Figure out who you're talking to.
Yes.
Be in the scenes. And that requires imagination. It requires a lot of focus, and that's tiring.
And take care of yourself. Like, don't dehydrate. Don't
Yeah.
overheat. Don't
Hmm.
feel like I'm standing for so long I can't see straight. If your eyes are hurting you from the light, turn the light off. Be easy on your brain so that your brain can focus on the more important things. That's your
Hmm.
work at hand.
Hmm.
Make your environment conducive to
And then
practice. How
work it
many
like a
times, Annie, have
muscle.
you seen one of your clients that you meet on a coaching session on Zoom and they're in the dark? They're in the dark. And I'm like, where's your
Mhm.
light? Where's your light? How do you see? Aren't you straining your eyes? They're like, oh, yeah, let me set something up. You got to do what's best for you. What makes your work more palatable for you is what's going to make your practice sessions more enjoyable,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. Good stuff, Law.
Great stuff.
So, very important, bosses. Practice. Get your practice in. Get your discipline in. All right. I am going to give a huge shout out to our sponsor, IPDTL, which allows Law and I to get in our vocal practice and talk to one another like bosses. Find out more at ipdtl.com. You guys have an amazing week, and we'll see you next week.
See you next
Bye.
week. Bye.
Join us next week for another edition of VO Boss with your host, Ann Ganguza. And take your business to the next level. Sign up for our mailing list at voboss.com and receive exclusive content, industry revolutionizing tips and strategies, and new ways to rock your business like a boss. Redistribution with permission, coast-to-coast connectivity via IPDTL.